Picked the wrong week and quit sniffing glue.
Hey kids, welcome back to week 2 of Eagle 2 from round 2. And it's Tuesday. Yes, it just happens to work that way. I won't call yesterday a lost day, but it was a day I did not get a lot of modeling work done because orders come in. Thankfully, everybody is taking this time at home to work on models, which is great, apparently. Or apparently they're taking that time because I am hopping around like a one-legged bullfrog. I don't know. See, I'm so tired I can't even come up with a good analogy. But what I want to get back on the track for today is to get back on this Eagle. Now, I have been able to sporadically go out and apply coats of white primer to coats of white primer. That is not a Moody Blues song. Coats of white primer on the various sub-assemblies that I do have done. But it's really been impacting the amount of time I've been able to spend creating the painting templates for the new bits and even for the old bits, because even though you think you've seen this Eagle before, the dimensions are slightly off. They are different than Eagle 1. So I have had to go back and rejigger all of the templates that I made for Eagle 1. But trying to do that while I'm building, it takes time, and that was a time I did not have. So I did work a little bit over the weekend on the booster, the spine booster, and that mostly it was in taking care of these seams. These are not mold seams. These are actual, honest to God, put them together and sand apart seams. The mold seams on the spine booster are very good. I haven't had to do any of that kind of sanding that I did on the Eagle. But because of all of these little tanks and cylinders, I have had to get the Bondo out and putty them and sand them and putty them yet again. But I think I'm ready to get that put together and or start to get the white paint on those. But where we're at today, I want to get these guys done. So I need to get the white paint out, or the very, very light gray, and for that I am using sky gray as my lightest gray. And start bringing up some of the highlights on these sections that will allow me to build up those side cages and spine, which is mostly done, and then I can concentrate on the painting of the lab pod. Okay, we've got a quiet moment here toward the end of the day on Tuesday, and I can finally sit down and talk about what I've gotten done and what I haven't gotten done today. I've got the bells, all the engine bells, black on the inside, aluminum on the outside. I want to hit them with maybe another light coat of aluminum, and then do the black scorching around the tail ends of it. Not too much, but some. That's good. That's good to go. I have been putting the black elements on the head and on the shoulder pads so that I can work on those templates. The idea is that you would paint this area black and that area black, and then template over top of it, spray the whole thing white again, and then that would leave those nice and black. And I'm working on little masks for the areas here on the sides. I've got the Bobo cages. I've got them, the insides of them at least. I've got them glued up and they're drying now. And then I can put the outside frameworks on those, and those will be ready to attach to the spine hopefully tomorrow. Things are picking up speed here, cooking along, but I've had to stop and work sporadically, stopping and going because of the needs of getting another couple orders out. So that's the way my Tuesday's gone. Hopefully tomorrow we can pick up and do full steam. Hey kids, it's Wednesday. Hoping to get a lot done today. I should have limited distractions, so hopefully we can get a whole bunch of stuff done. I've got everything is at the sub-assembly stage, and I'm dying to start slamming some of this stuff together. Going to do a lot of painting hopefully today on the shoulder pads. The framework is mostly done. it's mostly done. Once I get a few more little tiny things taken care of, I'll be able to set that aside, and that is everything from the front frame up through the backbone, the spine, and into the back frame. And I might even get the engines. I'm pretty close to getting those done. Been working on the engine bells. You'll see them over here. Getting those painted in and out, and getting the landing gear worked on. And the last major thing to do really is the lab pod. I've got the bottom windows in on the head on the cockpit, so I'm ready to put the top windows in and get those masked off. You can see I started painting the black areas so that I can cover those. I'm working on the painting mask today, and that's really what's taking the time, because I want to get those measured up, but I don't want to get ahead of myself and getting things painted before I have gotten them measured up for the templates. So that, and then the big pod will be the big workings for today. As you can see, I've got the shoulders I've got ready. I've already got the mask measured for the bottom, and I've got the black areas painted so that I can cover those. So let's get cracking on. And of course I still have the entire inside back of the cockpit and the pilots to worry about. So lots of stuff to do. Not nearly as far along as these painted parts might suggest. Okay, back at it. Working on templates for the Eagle 2, and everything you thought you knew about the Eagle 1 is wrong when you put it up next to the Eagle 2. There is nary a dimension that is the same, and it's amazing to think of that when you realize you set them next to each other. They look so similar. But taking measurements, you never take anything for granted. It's always best for me to trace off the actual parts, and that way I know what I'm making will fit. Sorry, I'm cleaning up here. You're catching me trying to clean up. And so the first thing I start with is doing the windows. So these are the two windows that you'll want to keep open, or at least visible. So it has an extra allowance at the bottom for the white frame. And these basically, I also do them on the inside. Also protect the inside, just because I know I'm going to be reaching in there with glue and whatnot, and I want to keep them clean. So I can go ahead and put that in. I've already done the bottom ones. They don't really need all that much protection because of the way they are. But what I'm going to do is, now that those are painted, I want to protect them so that I can paint the white around them. So I would do something like this, where you take this and you use this as a mask to put over the black area to keep it protected. Now it's possible that they won't all meet in the center there, so that's where you take a little bit of painter's tape and you go over that seam. I'm really mostly interested in protecting this outer arc, the outer arc. Sorry, trying to talk and do this at the same time is not my forte. But yeah, you want to protect this outer curve. That's what I was looking for, the word curve, not arc. So you put that down. There you go. Lay that in place, and then you find the one that goes with it, which is the side. I don't know, depending on which window frame this is, that's either the bottom or it's the top. In this case, it would be the top, but this is always the side. So you put that in place, and you put it over that back wall there so that it protects that arc, and these are meeting in the middle just fine. Now, this is something I might end up having to change, and that is I've got window frames that also have the frame inside it. So what I want to do in this case is put both of them down. I'm going to put both of them down, match up that angle, make everybody happy with that outside edge. And now that that's in, I want to peel this outer edge off. Just like that. So that what happens is that angle gets painted white when I go over this with the white, and then you have a white, then you have the black window. Well, it simulates the window. It's not really a window, but you have the black shape in the center and the white framework here, because we're going to paint white over this whole thing. Now, see, I've just done the other one, and you can see I've got a little bit of gap right here. And I can just run a really thin, actually what I can do is just cut a tiny thin strip off of the waste part of this vinyl. Because all I really need to do is to cover up that tiniest of tiny seams. I just shove that down in the corner. Actually getting it to unstick from my finger is the biggest obstacle. There you go. And I can either use my X-Acto blade or a toothpick and just run that bead down the center here. And then cut it off where it hits the end. And that's something I recommend on all of the template sets that I sell, is that you can always use the outsides of the vinyl, you know, the vinyl between the parts, between the pieces. You can use those for filler strips or straight edges or practically anything. I just need to make sure that when I cut this off, there you go, it goes all the way up to the front angle there. But now the bottom of this is ready to paint. I also have, I'll tell you what, let me cut a very fine angle in this. Pop that right in at that corner. Okay. Now I've also have masks on this sheet that are meant to do this. They are meant to mask off these silver or these thrusters here. I don't know exactly what they are. Radar dishes, communications relays, something. But there's 4 of them. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. And oh, I know what it is. They are the maneuvering thrusters for when this Eagle is supposed to act as a lifeboat, because I saw that on the making of 1999. It's on the Blu-ray set, and they mention that Brian Johnson mentions the modular nature of this Eagle, and that if necessary, the head could pop off and make its own lifeboat. So if that were the case, then it would need to have its own directional thrusters. Because Lord knows there isn't a square inch of the rest of this ship that doesn't have directional thrusters all over it. But this is set up in a way that you can, if you elect to wait and paint the silver after you've painted all the white, you can use this mask. If you want to paint the silver first before you paint the white, then you can use the inside of the mask. Paint that silver and then use the inside to just mask that off when you paint the white. It's 2 different ways you can do it. Okay, so those are great. Next step is going to be to put the masks on the crosses here that go on the shoulders, and also on the bottom, that this dark area over the landing gear. And there are other masks for these shoulder pieces that I need to check to make sure they are the right size, and one of them is to mask all of these. Yeah, so you can mask all of these quarters, or all of these triangles. There are a massive number of triangles, and I'm trying to find them. Here they are, that go on these sides. So if you wanted to paint this gray, say, and then mask it, you could then go over top of that with your white paint and then peel that off, and you'd still have a gray triangle there. These are ever so small. They need to be about, no, you know, they fit pretty, they could stand to be a tiny bit bigger. So I need to go back and enlarge those a tiny bit. But this is why I do these template sets. I will usually go through 2 or 3 rounds of refining. Now that's way too big. Now see, that was meant to mask off that shape, but that's way too big. So I need to reduce the size of that one. Thank you, Mr. Compressor. This one is for the fronts of these shoulder pads. I need to see if they're the right size. Yeah, they're a little bit off. Not bad for a first attempt, but I could see where they need to be. But by putting them in place, I can also show the shortcomings of them, and I know how much more bigger I need to make them, or smaller, or whatever. Okay, everything is a learning experience. And this one, I wanted to do the circle here. That's a tiny bit small. That's just a wee bit small. But I want to see how this one goes. Yep, that is the same wee bit small. Okay. So I wanted to mask to make this circle here available for painting. Now I've learned that these are, yeah, the negative for one will work as the positive for the other, but they are a bit small. Okay. Okay, because we're coming to the end of the day and I don't have anything put together like I was hoping, I'm just going to start gluing some stuff that I think I'm done with. So we're going to start with the landing gear. I have got the parts painted, and what I don't have painted, or I've got this much I can put together and then I can weather in the grime around it, but I think we're good on that. Now, you can tell me what you think about this in the comments, but I am not going to worry about fixing all of those seams on the bottom of the feet. I really just don't think that much is ever noticed. And tell me what you think about that, because I don't ever plan on entering this in a competition. If I were, then maybe I would take that time to do it. It's just something that, 99% of the time you're never going to see it. I kind of want to, I don't want to say I want to get done with this thing, but I do kind of want to get done with this thing. It's just another thing that would slow me down. You tell me what you think about that idea. I just can't bring myself to it. I've done it once before. I've done it on the kit on the Eagle 1. Well, like I said, if I were entering this in a competition, then yeah, I'd fix those gaps. And who's to say that someday in the future, if I decide to do that, I can always take these feet back off and do that exact thing. But for the time being, I just don't have any interest in it. So let's get the rest of these gear. It's kind of up there with taking care of all of the seams in the piping. Is it something that I want to do? Yeah, I got rid of most of them, but I didn't get rid of all of them. I will be skinning that cat until the end of time, because it is a lot of work. Okay, it looks at least like we have a hopeful end of the day today. Did get some work done prancing around various portions of this. You'll see the frame is all in one piece. I feel like the Moonwatcher in 2001. I should throw this up in the air and see what kind of space station it makes. Started putting actual coat of duplicate, or not duplicate. Okay, so this is how we're going to end up today. I actually have some real substantive progress made. Started putting on the white Tamiya coats over top of the masks that are down. I've got the entire Bobo cage and spine glued together. I feel a bit like Moonwatcher. I should throw this up in the air and see what kind of space station it turns into, or floating missile it turns into. Started working on the lab pod. I've got the thruster areas, diamonds, these areas masked off, and I am starting to work up on the grays. And if you put this in place, you will see that it's too small. I think it's because of the rubber bands and whatnot, but it will fit on there, trust me. And working on the engine cages and the shoulders, and a little bit on the head. This should all kind of come together tomorrow. I've even got a coat of beige on the back wall of the cabin, so that kind of small detail fiddly work is being done. I've got the engines blacked out on the inside, and a little bit of the scorching around the side. I'm going to put some engine exhaust color on that, finish those up, and I think I want to go through the landing gear and take a black wash to some of that. But yeah, it's all starting to come together. We'll get a lot done tomorrow. We might even be able to start on decals. Good morning, folks. It's Thursday. It's the gateway to the weekend, and starting to do some little tiny detail painting, and I'm working on the pilots today, both Alan and Tony, and I'm working on the back wall. And I think we're going to get a lot done today. I want to get this kind of into a place where I can have some of the color drying while I go off and do other things. You might notice over here, well, you can't because it's not in range. I've got the entire bone structure here done, with the exception of the shoulders, which I will be putting on today. But I've got the engine pod assembly glued and rubber banded to the back pod to keep it, let it dry, keep it straight while it does that. But I'm just going through and painting in the back wall. Alrighty, I am back at the Eagle 2, and we're starting to paint in some details. I've been working on the pilots in the back wall of the cabin this morning. I'm still having a devil of a time with this door. Just the physical act of painting it is not coming out right. Either the paint will strip up what's underneath, or else my coffee nerved hands will go out of line, and it's just not been going as smoothly as I'd like. But I am getting the pilots down. Of course, we have second season Alan and second season Tony here. And those are going quite nicely, I think. The back wall, other than the door itself, is looking kind of nice. So, of course, when it comes to painting the details on the pods and the shoulders and the pod, shoulders and the head, I'm looking for resources, looking at screen captures, looking at all kinds of things, looking at the making of, looking at the box art, looking at the sample that was painted up that Round 2 put on their box, and noticed a couple things I thought I would point out. First of all, the paint scheme they use, I think, is a little busy. It's a little I don't want to say cartoonish. That's not the right word, but a little too graphic, a little too obvious, I think. I'm going to do things that are more subtle than that. I don't know that I'm going to put so many of those blue colors in as they have indicated here. Although one thing I did notice, I very much like the artwork that, well, let me just throw everything away here. Let me pull the camera up. I very much like the photo and the setup here. Professionally built and painted model shown, background props not included, which is, very nice. But look at this thing here. The docking tube. No way is that going to fit there. I know it's the docking tube for the standard Eagle because it's got the cutout of the passenger pod there, but yeah, don't try to use that to go in that door, kids, because it won't work. But look at some of the amounts of the blue grays and some of the stuff that's going on. I mean, I think probably the most notable is all of the detail that they've got going on underneath there. And look, if you'll notice, there's that gap There's that gap that I was having. You can kind of see it on the side there. The gap that I was noticing on my build is right there. So not so crazy after all. Of course, this is, oh, the box. That's why, because it's the bottom of the box. I was wondering, why is that upside down? There's the artwork that they use. Again, a little boxy, a little obvious. Mine is probably going to be more shades of paneling than that. And then here's your color guide for the cockpit. I'm not doing the orange jacket. That would be Koenig, or Koenig. It's Walter Koenig. It's John Koenig. That would be Koenig with the orange jacket. I'll be doing Tony with the blue jacket. Devil with the blue dress is what I'll be doing. Okay, enough of that. Let's get back to this. I've got these kind of whited, and what I'm going to do is use my templates to throw some color at it. And then I think what's missing on that kit that I will be doing on mine is I'll just do a nice overall blended misting coat, and that will kind of break down some of the contrasty, I think. So let's get some templates cut out and work these guys up, and then we'll go to here. Okay, so all what you see here is what I've done is I've just put masks over the areas that I wish to keep this darkest gray. This is actually, I'd say medium gray, but I want to keep those colors. So the next pass I do over this would be a lighter color, and obviously that would keep that color what it is. I want to do a blue-gray, and I want to put that over some other panels that once that blue-gray dries, I can mask those panels off and keep that color, and then I will go with a white-gray over top of that, and then finally a white blending coat over top of the whole thing. Alrighty then, I've got the bluish-gray sprayed all over a lot of the kit. Mostly on this on the lab pod. I keep wanting to call it travel pod. It's the lab pod, and on the spots on the shoulders. Now, as that dries, I will go back over it with yet more masks and cover those to keep them the same color of light bluish gray that I've painted on here. And then what we do is we go over that with a light gray and then a white. And then you take all the masks off, and you put a blending coat over top of all of it to keep it to keep it from looking too contrasty. And that's when you might go over it with the black shaded with the card, and you card it after that, and that kind of blends everything together. My pilots are drying. It's actually a good time now. It's lunch. It's a good time now to step away for a while, take a break, let things dry, and then come back at it. Okay, well this is unsettling. I was painting the seatbelt straps on our pilots, and the decal has it as an orange, and I took that as given, and then I did a quick research, and it's actually more of a mustard yellow, so now I have to repaint them a little bit more of a sand yellow than they were. So nerds, back up and punt. Okay, these are the things you kind of have to take in stride. Now the pilots, when they go in the wall, they look something like this when they're done. So that's the part I'm working on now. Okay, well, you know, sometimes you got to do things twice to do them right, and sometimes you got to do them 4 times to do them right. I just scraped off all the paint that was on that door. I didn't like how it was turning out, but I didn't want to strip the whole piece because I do like how the door frame turned out, and I do like how the walls turned out. But I didn't like the door itself. The paint was too blobby. It was showing brush strokes. It was giving me all the stuff that I don't like about a paint job. So there's only one solution at this point, and that is to tape it off and spray it. So I'm going to have to let that dry good and well before that happens. The work on the pilots continues. I'm happy with the Moon Beige Alpha beige color pants that I got coming out of that. I'm about to the point where there's one more thing I want to do today, and that would be to mask over some of these now bluish gray spots and put a light gray coating over top of all of that and on these shoulder pads as well. So let me go to Ye Old Plotter and cut out some new shapes and get ready for that. Okay, I've got some pieces picked out and stuck down to the lab pod, and as you can see, with a slightly brighter yellow. These ones have been painted over once before, but these ones are fresh. And now I'm going to put a very light gray version over top of all of this. Alrighty, so I have just put a light coat of light gray on top of the lab pod and went back in with this Mecha light gray, which has got a real blue cast to it, and punched that up in a couple of spots. And now I'm going to let all this dry, and then I think the thing to do then is to take all of the templates off except for the black ones. You don't want to take the ones that off, the ones that are on around this thruster, or these four thrusters actually. You want to leave those on because those are black and those need to stay. And then what I'd like to do maybe then is, after I've taken all of those off, is just run some different grays with a straight line and a card, you know, where you do something like, you know, you just take a straight edge and you go tss, tss, and you just do all kinds of panel indications on that. Righty, the paint has had time to dry, and now I'm coming back and surgically removing all of the pieces of vinyl that I have put down. All of the masking is going to come off, and then we will do a carding slash blending coat. Oh, this is looking very good. Carefully sliding the blade under so as to not poke anything. Just trying to get under a corner. Some corners are easier than others. And of course, this all was going perfectly well until I turned the camera on, proving that inanimate objects do in fact hate me. But so you can see what's going on. I'm getting some very clean, sharp plates of different colors. I was kind of concerned about the mech colors, the Vallejo mech colors, that they would not stick as well as the Tamiya's and I'd get some paint lifting off, but that has not been the case. Let you know if that continues to be the case, but everything here is looking pretty good. So let me just continue with this and then I'll show you the results. And this is what it looks like with all the masks removed. It's hard to remember a time when everything was all this dark. But now the trick is, now that all these masks have been removed, and I'm concentrating on the pod and I'm kind of leaving the shoulder pads out for right now because I needed to catch them up. Catch this up. This was already too dark, and we were already into the shades of white on the shoulder pads. But now that this has been revealed, what I'd like to do is do a misting coat over top of all of that to kind of knock down some of this contrast. I still have these black areas covered, and those won't come off until we're completely done. But we're going to do a little bit of carding with the whites, and then we will be, we'll do it carded with the whites, and then we might do a little bit of shaping with the reverses. And what I mean by shaping with the reverses, because it sounds kind of stupid, is that each one of these shapes that I've put down also has a frame around it. See, like has a frame like that, so I could actually lay this down, spray inside of it, and make some padded shapes outside of these normal ones that I just put down. So that's kind of like the second round after everything has been carded. Then you throw in some additional, and that's just done very lightly with a gray. So if I did that now, it would mess this up so much. So let's not do that. Let's go ahead and do a white version over top of this. Come back, kids. It's Friday. It's the last work day of the week. I had really had high hopes it was going to be the last work day on this Eagle kit, but I put everything together just to take a state of the Eagle, state of the build, if you will, just to take a look-see and see what I still had left to do. And there's a ton left to do. There's a ton left to do, and I was even kind of forgetting about the booster. It's like I had all this stuff to do left on the Eagle, and then I looked over and said, you know, there's a ton of stuff left to do on those boosters too. So I think it's fair to say we will not be finishing today because there's still, I mean, the main thing is all of the decals, which will take a month and a half to put down because there's a blue million of them. But today I will be, see, I did a little bit of work this morning, got the landing gear out, got them all dirtied up a bit, pulled the booster out, was painting the red oxide areas of the booster pack. Let's see, what else? Well, I got the templates put on yesterday for the shapes, and so what we need to do today is start off with that light or the white coat. I just pieced this together to see where we were still lacking. So that's job one for this morning, is to take this back apart and put the white coat, or the lightest coat, on the work pod or the lab pod, and then a white coat on the shoulders, and then we'll assess from there. But back to where we were. I need to clean this desk off, get rid of the things that are not immediately of concern, and concentrate on putting a white coat down. I don't know whether I showed you the Flying Verdeschi brothers since the last time I worked on them, but putting the white accents on the coats, and painting the brown shoes and the beige pants and all. It's coming along nicely, but slowly. It's kind of nice. You can concentrate on one tiny little thing in your hand and kind of forget the world at large. Okay, I'm just doing that most hated of things, and that is cleaning the airbrush, because I am switching from doing some red paint to working on the white paint. And you know what a transition that can be. You got to make sure your brush is clean as a whistle and then some before you inadvertently make your Eagle pink. So that includes cleaning out the cup too, which I really need to do. So I pull out the old, I usually use acetone or lacquer thinner. I'll swap between the two depending on how my mood strikes me, but I'm thinking the acetone today because I want to get a deep cleaning. Alright, I took a slight detour into the gray zone to paint some things gray. Yes, the brush is clean as a whistle, and now I can get into the white, but I don't want it to be absolutely white. So I want a ever so small touch of light gray in it. This is a white that I will keep pure and white and off to the side. This is a white that I'm going to put a drop or two of the sky gray into, and it's going to make this jar a very very light gray. So not so much that I'm going to do this, add it a drop at a time, and then mix the jar up. Be very careful because I don't want to add a whole bunch more white to it to kind of dilute it back. Well, see, now I know that there's some gray in there because I saw me put it in there. So let me add a little bit more. There you go. That's a very fine difference. That is not, it may read as white on camera, but it's got a tiny, tiny, ever so tiny tint of gray to it. I think that I am going to risk one more dose. Yes, sir. I like that better. I like that better. What this does is it gives me room to grow, because when the time comes to put an absolute white highlight on, there's still white room to grow. You don't want it to be so white that something that is absolutely white won't show up against it. If you see what I mean. Okay, close that out. And yes, I'll get that last bit of contamination from the eyedropper into the very, very, very light gray. And I'm going to put a drop or two of thinner in here just to help that out. There. Okay, close that up. And you'll see that there was absolutely nothing scientific about that. I just do it due to what my little old eyeball says is right. But now I've got in a sense, I've got a very, very light coat of gray on here. So I will be using that to put onto there. Okay, I've got the shoulder pods whitened and the head whitened, and they're hanging on the rack there. And what I've got left is this big mamma jamma here. I've also taken opportunity to work on the little tanks for the booster, trying to get everything to the same level of white. There's actually some white on the framework that I need to touch up, that I will use the same color for, but I need to be a lot more careful with that, because I don't want to get the inner cage too white, because I like the contrast there. But let's just do this last bit and then we'll take it from there. Well, I just got done, well, not just got done, I got done a while ago, putting a very light gray coat on everything. And I hope you can tell the difference. This looks a lot less contrasty than it did, but it still allows me to see all the shapes. And then after I did that, I basically went around with one of these donut masks, and I call them donut masks because they have a hole in the center. And just went through and sprayed through the hole, moved it around, sprayed through the hole, moved it around. This is the international symbol for using an airbrush, by the way. And you can tell here, hopefully, you can see the difference on the top there, where put some plating effects in there. And now I am ready to put a coat of clear on this to see how it looks. And I got to tell you, I don't know about the rest of you, but nothing bums me out faster than an ugly rainy day. And I have had my fill of them this week. This is Friday, the last work day of the week, and it has been raining miserable all week. And I think that contributed a lot to my foul mood and not getting a lot done, general grumpiness, and all of that. But today, the weather gods are kind. It is sun shining. The birds are singing. It's beautiful out there. It's luckily enough, since it's been raining all week, today would be a great day to mow the yard, but I can't because my yard is saturated from all the rain this week, and I have to have at least one completely dry day, and then the next day, if it's dry again, I can go out and mow, because my yard just turns into a swamp and I can't push the mower through it if that's what happens. So it's the best kind of beautiful day out, because I don't feel guilt about not doing any yard work. But what I do like to do on a nice day like today is listen to my compressor, is to use this for a good excuse to put a flat coat on, or a satin coat, get a good clear coat on this, and Lord knows I've got enough parts out here to clear coat. This is primary what I want to do. On the shoulder pieces, I want to take these masks off and then shoot them with a clear coat, and then see how they look. And if necessary, I can go over them with donut masks as well, but I don't think I will need to. Okay, now that the clear coat has had a chance to cure up on the lab pod here, I'm just going through and trying out the different details, see how they look. Gotta put these engines on. This is the bottom framework. But what I'm interested in right now is removing the templates here so that you can see the black cross pattern that's underneath. Remember, this was one of the first things that was painted, was this black right on top of the gray primer here. I'm being careful just to poke the knife under a corner. Peel it up slowly from that corner. And you get a nice crisp line here that is got black paint on it, which means you can weather it a whole lot better than if it were the filmy decals. Say you wanted to put little thrust burns around it where the engines might have scorched the paint. You could do that easier with this than you could straight old decals. Now I have to think that's probably what inspired the design in the first place, was a way that you could have that thruster burn as part of the design. But there you go. So one last one here, and then this module will be pretty much ready for decals. Okay, we're coming down on Friday afternoon to the end of where I would normally I would start closing down and start getting ready to put the video together. So as you can tell by the multiple pieces here, this kit is not going to be finished today, nor anywhere close to it, because we still have a tremendous amount of work to do just in the decaling of it. So we're going to be going into part 3, it looks like. So hang on for that. That'll be fun. What I'd like to do is kind of piece together what I do have, kind of make a little bit of a mock-up here to show where everything is sitting, so that we can get a final look at the progress that has been made this week. Got pretty good. Got a lot done. Not nearly as much as I would like to, but like I said, once the weather turned crappy, then there was a limited amount of stuff you could do that didn't involve going outdoors. So I'm having a hard time keeping the white balance working for some reason, but this is where we're going to close it off on a Friday afternoon. It is really starting to take over the workbench here, but we still have miles to go before I sleep. All of the decals have to go on. All of the landing gear has to go on. The cockpit, which I did get finished, or as finished as I'm going to finish. There's Tony and Alan. This has to go into the back of the cockpit here. Like I said, lots to do. All of the decals have to go on the booster pack. All the decals have to go everywhere, and they are legion. There are plenty of them. But we did get, I did not clip that on because these clips are very strong, and that's going to be a question of doing it a minimum number of times, because I'm afraid of what it's going to do to the paint. Those are metal clips, my friend. But we've got the most of the, I would say the majority of the paint job is done, and it's all down to decals. So that's where we're gonna close it off for the week, and that's where we're gonna end it for this week. Man, the hair's getting out of control. Try to hold the bird up in front of me. You can see how lovely and huge it is. Did not get done this week. Was kind of hoping I would, but you know, business is business. Business is booming. and that's good. That means you're all at home. You're all at home making models, and that's good. So we didn't finish. Well, what do you know? We're gonna have to finish it next week. So until then, when it's decals, 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 y'all be good to each other. Take care of yourselves. Look out for each other. We'll see you here next time.